A large hermitage, once belonging to the famous Buddhist monk Gautam Buddha, stood in a peaceful village. This wise man had devoted his entire life to introspection and reflection in his quest for enlightenment. Those who came to the village to learn from him found comfort and insight. Gautam Buddha had a group of serious followers who lived in the hermitage and devoted themselves to learning about the spiritual world. One student in particular stood out, but not in a good way. He would talk non-stop, never giving anyone a chance to catch their breath. His incessant chatter irritated the other disciples who valued solitude and reflection more highly. This particular disciple was very chatty, and whenever he went out to the village to beg for money, he always came back with anecdotes about the people he met. He enjoyed telling these tales to his fellow disciples at the hermitage, and they often included snide remarks about one disciple made to another. He was motivated by a need to look good and smart in front of others, and as a result, he praised himself a lot. He saw himself as separate and above the rest of the disciples. Gautam Buddha once called a meeting of his followers to issue a challenge. He proclaimed that they should all select a goal for the following month. The purpose of the test was to strengthen their resolve and resolve. There was a catch, though. Each disciple could only pick one option that fit their abilities. Anyone who failed to keep their resolution by the end of the month would have to revert to their old habits. The students made decisions after giving serious thought to the matter. Each person devised their own plans for success, no matter how large or modest. The gregarious student, on the other hand, was intent on visiting Gautam Buddha at his home as soon as possible in order to establish his superiority. "I don't want to make a small resolution," he told the sage monk. "To the extent of my abilities, I seek a grand conclusion. Help me make up my mind." Gautam Buddha smiled kindly at his disciple and gazed into his eyes before asking, "Can you truly fulfill any resolution I give you? Will you be able to muster the fortitude and perseverance to see it through?" The student responded with firm resolve, "Yes, I am willing to undertake any resolution you set for me." "Very well, your resolution is this. You will remain silent for the next month," the monk said in his calm wisdom. "You must keep your mouth shut." The student was shocked. A dramatic conclusion was what he had hoped for, something difficult but not impossible. He questioned the monk's decision because it seemed too easy to maintain silence for a whole month. "Is that all, holy man of the temple? A month of silence is far too easy. I ask that you grant me a solution that is commensurate with my abilities." An unfazed Gautam Buddha shot back, "First, demonstrate your ability to fulfill this simple resolution. The act of remaining silent is profound. Keeping one's mouth shut is much more difficult than opening it. You might learn something very important from this seemingly straightforward solution." The student grudgingly agreed with the decision, and he departed the hermitage, intent on maintaining radio silence. At first, he was able to handle it with relative ease. The mental toll of his silence, however, became increasingly heavy as the days turned into weeks. He wanted to talk to his fellow students and tell them what he was thinking. He yearned to join in on the lively chatter going on all around him. On day 3, he felt an underlying unease, and by day 4, it had grown considerably. The other disciples carried on their conversations and interactions within the hermitage. He wanted so badly to be able to tell them what he was thinking and feel heard. His resolve, however, restrained him. The disciples' internal conflict worsened over time, leading to his physical illness. There was a constant din of chatter in his head, making it hard for him to concentrate on anything else. Desperate, he wrote to Gautam Buddha, "Buddhist monk, I cannot bear this silence any longer. I feel like I'm going to pass out. I feel like I'm going crazy because of the turmoil in my head. Should I keep my promise to myself?" Gautam Buddha read the disciple's words with a calm smile and replied, "Resolutions are meant to be broken, but remember that the one who fulfills their resolution gains inner strength. The way to enlightenment and awakening is through self-development. It's up to you to decide. Think about how you'll handle the bigger challenges in life if this little resolution is too much for you. The disciple's heart was touched by these words, and he withdrew into silence, retreating to his hut. He went out only when absolutely necessary and otherwise stayed inside. After 15 days, most of the other disciples had given up on their resolutions, but the gregarious one was still committed to maintaining radio silence. All of the other hermits were curious and worried about him because of his unusually long period of silence. Another student of Gautam Buddha's eventually approached him and asked, "Revered monk, what do you think happened to our talkative fellow? Could it be that wild animals ate him?" While wild animals could have taken him, Gautam Buddha reasoned there could be another explanation for his disappearance. Maybe he finally located what he was looking for. The student posed the question, is it really so harmful to talk too much? Much of the world's suffering, as taught by Gautam Buddha, results from our inability to keep quiet. We have an innate need to communicate, even if doing so is pointless or counterproductive. We tend to speak more than listen, which is a major contributor to arguments, disagreements, and misunderstandings. To appreciate silence fully, one must acknowledge the deep calm it provides. We have a constant need to communicate, but we rarely take time to enjoy the peace and quiet that silence can bring. The student inquired, "What is the solution then?" The solution, Gautam Buddha explained, is to pay close attention to one's own thoughts. Mindful introspection of our inner turmoil and action in the here and now can lead to profound personal growth. Excessive conversation drains our resources and prevents introspection. The road to serenity begins with learning to keep quiet. The disciple nodded to Gautam Buddha as he left, having clearly been moved by these words. He set out on a journey, making his way into the woods in search of the silence he hoped would silence his own mind. He spent his time in the forest thinking deeply and reflecting on life. No one had heard from him in months, and time was running out. Wild animals were blamed for his disappearance, and the hermitage gave up hope that he would ever return. But to their delight, the gregarious disciple came back to the hermitage 3 months later. He had undergone a metamorphosis, exuding an air of serenity and contentment. His constant chatter had ended, and he was now completely silent. Disciples gathered around him in awe at his sudden change. His speech was now calm and collected, with none of the agitation that had previously marked it. After he finished talking to his followers, he bowed to the monk at Gautam Buddha's feet. With a tone of wonder, he inquired, "Am I still silent? Is it still true that I want to change?" Gautam Buddha met the eyes of his student and said, "Yes, you are still silent, and your resolution remains unbroken." The student went on to detail his life after leaving the hermitage. In the woods, he said, the voices in his head became more insistent, and the consequences of his actions hit home. He had never truly understood the value of silence, despite the harm he had caused through his constant chatter and gossip. The inner monologues were louder the longer I was alone. But those voices eventually died out, and he was left in complete silence. He finally understood the value of silence and found inner calm for the first time in his life. He went on to say, "There was nobody there to talk to, and there were no outside noises. More importantly, though, his mind stopped racing. My eyes have been opened to the importance of silence." Gautam Buddha nodded in agreement and said, "The unrest within us often stems from excessive external chatter. When we focus inward, we experience peace. Silence is golden, but words come easily. Talking when it isn't necessary drains our resources and keeps us from finding inner peace. Keeping silent is a surefire way to find serenity within ourselves." The once chatty disciple had undergone a radical change in the woods, emerging as an exemplar of calm and insight upon his return to the hermitage. The truth about the importance of mindful speech and the transformative power of inner silence was made clear by his transformation from constant chatter to profound silence. As this Zen tale draws to a close, may it serve as a gentle reminder of the value of listening carefully and speaking only when necessary. The path to self-realization and contentment can begin with an appreciation of silence, even in a chaotic world. Just as the voluble disciple eventually learned to embrace silence and discover the depths of his own being, so can we.